Hello and welcome back to another episode. Now, I've just got back from my first ever Dungeons and Dragons session. Now you may be thinking, what? Look at him. He's totally into D&D, must have been all his life. But actually no, I've always been curious about Dungeons and Dragons. But I've never had that magic sort of group of people who were willing to either learn the game or help me to learn, or indeed just willing to get together often enough to actually play. And so finally, I've actually hunkered down and played the game, and it's so much better than I thought it was. Because from the outside, D&D looks like a rule-bound nightmare, like a minefield of things you need to learn in order to actually progress a story. But it's so much more fluid and imaginative and collaborative than I ever really understood. Until the past couple of weeks, but also especially today. Just fantastic. So I'm going to tell you about the campaign in just a moment, but just before I do, I just wanted to say, if you've ever been curious about Dungeons and Dragons, give it a go. Find some people who are equally curious if you can, and just try it out. You can actually try it out for free using there's a free online PDF and all sorts of things from Wizards of the Coast or the D&D website. Just try it out, because the hardest part really is also one of the funnest bits, and that's creating your character. And so back in November, my wife and I, we got the player's handbook, and we sort of started constructing our characters. And so I'm playing a dwarven bard called Uri Hagbard Easthill, hence the hat. He's got a bone whistle, and this is from my time working as a Viking in a previous job. But he's got a bone whistle, which is his instrument. He loves drinking from a tankard, and he finds himself in a pub, or did find himself today in a pub with a whole load of other characters. But it's the construction of the character and what they can do using things like the player's handbook and starting to understand how those rules come together. That's probably the most daunting part. But actually, once you get over that, once you to start, my advice would be to start putting numbers on the character sheet, and from there you'll construct a character and it'll start to make sense to you. Especially, for example, the backstory. So my dwarf's backstory is, he comes from a slightly unusual bunch of dwarves who quite like sailing to trade. So they sort of sail along the coast and trade goods and this kind of thing. But anyway, so we found ourselves in a pub. And my wife, actually, she was playing a halfling criminal, or like a rogue, and she was sort of, we weren't together in the game. She was off in the corner. We had a drow played by one of our friends. This drow is a dark elf, and no one trusts him at all because he's got black skin and sort of dark eyes and white hair. He's a very strange-looking creature. And also we have a slightly strange wood elf, who is quite short for a wood elf. He's 5 foot. Was it 5 foot something? No, 4'10". So an inch shorter than me. I'm 4'11" as a dwarf. An elf who's shorter than a dwarf, but also who's got some extreme problems with sexual depravity as a noble. And this unlikely bunch of people found themselves all together in a pub. And we're asked, someone storms in and says, does anyone want some gold? Do you need some gold? Let's go on, everyone meet up at the guardhouse, and we'll go from there. And so, I actually in particular, I made my way to the guardhouse via the blacksmith, where there's another dwarf who's working. And we have a little chuckle about, tall people's issues and the way the tall people are rushing around. Apparently there's some problems out in the woods. And eventually we make our way to the guardhouse, and bit by bit all the different people start to gather there from the pub. We're all a bit coy at first, a bit standoffish, because we're all sort of, we're there, but we're not a group yet. And especially the drow, he's hidden outside the window of the guardhouse, listening in. And we're told, if you want to earn some money, we've got some problems with some random wolves off in the woods. You need to go out of town, through the marsh bit, the marshy area, and through the marsh woods. Make your way, just see what you can find, and you can keep any gold you find. And it's all a bit weird, but we can't quite ascertain what the weirdness is. And so we make our way off. Now obviously the elf, the short ass elf, has to go back and get his clothes from the pub, so I'm waiting there as a dwarf, like, oh, come on. With the halfling character, played by my wife, but the drow, he's off, and he's away into the woods. And we have to play catch up with him. So we find ourselves eventually catching up with him, making our way across a really rickety bridge to get across the river. And the strange thing about my character is that my character has a high dexterity because he's really good at dancing. So he's quite a chunky dwarf, but will surprise you with his bardic skills at dancing. So I can make my way across the bridge. But eventually, unfortunately, even though we're with a wood elf, the wood elf got caught and wrapped up by a boa constrictor, and that's where things got really interesting. I tried to whack it with my warhammer, and did fairly massive damage, 80%, so basically down, smashed on the head. But that was only after I'd already tried to play my flute to calm the beast down. Which didn't work at all. And then in comes the drow, who hears us screaming. He's off in the distance. He hears us screaming, comes running back, and kills the snake with a stab to the head, begrudgingly, because obviously drow and normal elves, as it were, don't get along, or wood elves don't get along. So we're having a great time. We're actually it's like reading a book. And it's like making up a story together. It's collaborative storytelling with some rules that sort of help you kind of figure out the odds of things. So see, it'd be easy for me to say, yes, I play my flute and the snake stops constricting the wood elf, but you need to decide what happens if that doesn't work. So you throw some dice, and it's great. I cannot more highly recommend Dungeons and Dragons. After the snake, we come to a well, and as a dwarf with with an interest in history and arcana, being a bard, and also as a dwarf who I get a skill for actually be able to notice stonework, we find a mysterious symbol carved on the inside of a well. And this mysterious symbol is repeated as when we make our way up through the woods to the mountains. We find this symbol above the door to basically a temple. Now this is where things got quite interesting, because I have, as a dwarf, I have dark vision, so I can sort of see in the dark. And so does the drow, because he's basically from an underground kingdom. He's escaped, having faked his own death. So he's not really wanted anywhere really, but he's found himself in this town. So he can see a bit further than me, and we make our way into the temple. And as a dwarf, I can see that on the far wall there's some stonework, there's some masonry which hasn't been finished off properly. Certainly not to a dwarven standard. There's basically what looks like a door that's been filled in by mere human hands, and so it's obvious to me. But we can't see all the way into the corner of this temple area. And like an idiot, I shout back to the halfling and the wood elf, "Can we get some light in here? Do you want to bring a torch in?" And that's when all hell breaks loose, because in the dark, suddenly there's a squawk and a squeak and a squeal, and the drow who I'm with, he buggers off into the dark. He hides against the wall because he can just disappear. Essentially there were a bunch of goblins in the corner with a wolf who's tied up, and they're trying to quickly untie the wolf to get me. The halfling and the wood elf have come in, and we're all in danger now because I shouted out like an idiot. But thankfully, the halfling is a badass. She, my lovely wife, shoots a bow. It gets one of the goblins right between the eyes, falls to the floor. The wood elf rushes forward, does a thunder wave, which is like a magical attack, and does quite a lot of damage to pretty much all of the goblins and the wolf. And he's a distance far enough away from us so it doesn't damage us. But the wolf doesn't really. So it's only about 10% off. So off its health. So the wolf lunges at the wood elf and is going for his throat, and everyone's like, "Oh!" And at this point, and it's unconventional play style, obviously, because really I'm the tank, I guess, in that instance. I should have been rushing in, but I was caught unawares. Oh, and at this point, the goblins start rushing us because the wolf's got the wood elf. I throw my axe. I actually incidentally took an axe with me. Yeah. Throw my axe, and it sailed clean past the goblin's head. Not having a good day, but at that point. But thankfully, we were saved by some quick action and some sneaky action. So the halfling rushes in, stabs a downed goblin in the head, kills that one. The drow comes round the corner in the dark. I sing some bardic inspiration, and the drow is inspired and is able to kill the wolf, stop it from murdering the wood elf, and we're left with one goblin in the corner who's distraught because it was his wolf. And he's like, oh! And he sort of starts flailing at us, and it's quite easy for us to finish off the goblin then. So again, it's what I mean. It's an interesting story. It's just sort of coming out of and all of this really is down to the excellent DM that we have. She hasn't really dungeon mastered for about 20 years, but she did a great job this evening, and I'm sure she's only going to get better as we're playing this more often. So in the corner there was an altar, and my rogue halfling friend comes in, and she sort of checks the altar, finds some drawers, but wasn't able to discern anything interesting because she actually rolled a 1 on a discernment check instead of 20. So 1 to 20. The closer to 20 you get, the closer you are, the more likely you are to actually pass and be able to do what you want to do. So she's not able to find anything weird there, but I do a discernment check, and I'm able to find, or an investigation, and I'm able to find that there's a hidden little area, and there's a key in there. A key inside the cavity. It's this like, it's like Zelda. Pick up the key and go to investigate the wall with the shoddy masonry, the human masonry, and the drow and the halfling, the rogue, get out their crowbars and go at the mortar, and we're able to knock down the wall, and that's where we're up to. All we know is that inside behind that wall there's like stale air, and there's a corner that sort of goes off to the right hand side, and that's where we have to leave it. So it took 5 hours to tell that story, but it was more than just telling it. It was living it, and it was fantastic. I'm so pleased I finally actually done this and played Dungeons and Dragons, because it was one of those things on my Geek Man card. Is there a Geek Man on my Geek card? Definitely. My nerd card, which just had never been stamped. And I'm sure there's so many nerds out there who've at least tried D&D, and I've tried similar things. I've tried Warhammer, I've tried a game called Havoc at one point, but these are more like tabletop war games, I guess. But Dungeons and Dragons always eluded me, and I never quite had the people around me to teach me how to play it. I knew it must be fun because so many people seem to love it, but I didn't know it was this much fun. It's so cool, and we haven't really done it. We walked through some woods, crossed a couple. Oh yeah, there was a second bridge we had to cross. That's it. And I was able to tightrope across one of the two sort of arm, hand holding ropes to get across. Then we sort of pegged another rope, a third rope, so people could walk across by holding onto the two. We done some little tasks like that, solving tasks as a group, getting to know each other, having some, especially between the two elves, some banter going on there, and me being a grumpy dwarf. It was great, and so out of that has come 5 hours, not 5 hours worth of book, as it were. If we were reading a story, we would have got further in 5 hours. But because we're figuring it out and telling it as we go, it lives with you. And I can't wait to see what's around that corner on Thursday. It's going to be great. So I just wanted to record this, and sort of, if only just for me to look back on at some point, how excited I was and how much fun it was playing our first D&D session. So my lovely wife has been so kind. Actually, she's even waiting upstairs while I record this, and she said, "No, you go and record. I'll read a book," because she knew it would be quite cool to be able to remember for posterity. But yes, give it a go. Give it a go, and see what you think, because it's fun. If you like choose your own adventure books, computer games, especially for RPGs and open world games. And if you like reading fantasy fiction, if you like telling stories, and if you like having a bit of a laugh, Dungeons and Dragons is for you. It's as simple as that. Anyway, I'm going to finish this. We're both going to have a nice cup of tea now, and but incidentally, she's so excited that she managed to kill a goblin with one shot between the eyes. She's a bit gutted that she failed on the altar, looking for the mysterious thing which I found. But yeah, my wife had a great time as well. So magnificent. Anyway, guys, as ever, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.